Brad. We are College SportsCast, and we are presented by the Fanboys.
I love it when he does this. It's not awkward at all. Come on, man.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. You made it. Or you didn't.
All right, guys, I'm back, but it took a few minutes there for some reason. I don't know. It always does. That seemed like longer than normal. It seemed like. All right, so we are College SportsCast, and today is we know the championship games for the women's and the men's basketball game. The women's is actually going on as we speak. And we have a special guest with us. SteveHighel's back with us. He's been with us about 3 other shows. He's back with us to kind of wrap up March Madness and the college basketball season and talk about everything that we have discussed over the last few weeks and March Madness and talk about some of these games. So, hey, Steve, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's always fun to talk college basketball with you. You've been on a few times this year. So right now we have the women's game, championship game on. And I know I've got it on and you've got it on, I know. And we got Iowa and LSU playing each other for the championship.
And now it's 20-20 at the end of the first quarter.
2020.
20
terrible,
to 20.
Terrible time to be alive.
That is true. Pretty good game so far from what I've seen. So, hopefully the men's game tomorrow night is as exciting as the first game was last night. So, I know the second game was pretty much over with probably 5-7 minutes left. Unfortunately. So Miami just couldn't keep up with it. So.
Yeah, the women's tournament the other night, both games were actually really good games.
They were, yeah.
LSU kind of come back on Virginia Tech, and then the Iowa South Carolina game was tight, and
that was a great game.
It was a great game the entire game. I know South Carolina made 2 or 3 comebacks and took like 1-point leads a couple of times, 2 or 3 times in the game.
That was a really good game. Yeah. The game last night, the San Diego State Florida Atlantic game was really good, and it kind of thought it wasn't going to be. Florida Atlantic kind of had a lead throughout the second half, and San Diego State just locked down defensively, and they came back at the end, and he had a great shot, and they won.
They did lock down defensively. I mean, the last 10 minutes, Florida Atlantic just could not score.
I know. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see how they do against UConn tomorrow night, because I don't know if they're going to be able to do the same thing against UConn. That's a really good UConn team, so it's going to be tough for me.
So I have you up there. Steve he runs justcollegebasketball.net, justcollegefootball.net. He is a John Wooden Award voter. So those are a few of his accolades, and the reason why he's on with us and doing some of this with us this year and coming on and talking college basketball with us. So I just want to put up there that I appreciate you being on. Yeah,
you're welcome. Anytime. Always happy to talk. Oops.
All right, man. So Of course, we're going to start out with a game that's actually being played right now, and that's the championship game. Of course, we got to start out. If you're going to talk about it, you got to start out with Caitlin Clark, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how you can start out with anybody else, right?
No, I mean, I think she's already got 15 points in this game, so or something like that. So, yeah. It's only the first quarter. So, yeah, it's pretty incredible season. I mean, remarkable season. To be honest with you, I mean, she just. I mean, this might be. I mean, I follow women's hoops, but I don't really follow it. I'm not a diehard of it, and I'm trying to remember a better season in the last 20 years. I mean, maybe Sabrina. I know a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
she didn't get to finish the season. I mean, they never got to play the tournament. She had a pretty incredible season that year. Other than that, I mean, she's been remarkable.
I mean, you kind of have to go back to like maybe Cheryl Swoops.
Possibly, yeah.
And
that's like what, mid 1990s.
Yeah, I think that was around when I graduated. I think she was like 93 or 94 or something like that, I believe. Yeah, Cheryl Swoops was. I mean, it's a long time ago.
Right before the WNBA kicked off, it was like, which was like the mid to late 90s. Cheryl Swoops was around, yeah.
Yeah. And then before that, you'd have to go with Cheryl Miller.
Yeah, good call.
That I can think of. You know what I mean? And that was in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, I've been following girls basketball for long. My sisters played, and I grew up in a gym, basically following girls basketball. I mean, that's how, you know what I mean? That's how I learned to play, was on the sideline, on the side goals or whatever, when they were running practice, I was over there, you know what I mean, with the ball. And I mean, that's how I learned to play, was in a gym with girls. I mean, I wasn't playing against girls, but that's how I learned to play ball, really. That's how I learned to shoot.
I saw something on Twitter today. Somebody said, hey, maybe the men's team for Iowa can get Caitlin Clark, and maybe they can do some damage in the tournament next year.
Yeah, man, I joked around with somebody the other day and said we need to get Caitlin Clark in the transfer portal for Kentucky. And I wasn't talking about for the women.
No, I know. I think most of the majority of the schools in the country could use her, and she was the shooter they had. So.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about for the women's game. I was talking about for the men's.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams out there that need shooters. So yeah, I mean. As you saw this season, so it'd be great to see if that would happen. Obviously not, but but yeah, I mean, it's been a great.
She has over 1,000 points this season and 300 rebounds. First time ever in the game that anybody's done that. Okay, this is women's game. Her average distance on 3-pointers this year is over 25 feet from the basket.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just like watching. It's like watching Steph Curry. It's the same. He pulls up over half court and he just shoots, and you're like, what is he doing? And he pushes, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, and then it goes in, and you're like, what?
Okay, yeah. Okay. I remember watching that game when he played. I think it was the first year the Warriors won the championship, about 2015 or 16. It was a game against Oklahoma City in like the middle of the season, and he pulled up like toward the end of the game. It was like literally two steps over half court, and he planted his feet and he shot it like it was just a regular jumper, and it was swish, and it was the end of the game. It was man, and then of course he was doing that for the next 3 or 4 years, and they were winning every year.
Right.
So I mean, it's crazy, but she's the modern day player now, and that's.
Well, she is definitely special. I love watching her play. She really is. She can dish the ball. She can drive the ball. I mean,
I watched that game the other night. I was very impressed. I hadn't watched her that much. I watched her several times this year, but not like every game or anything. But how good of a passer she is too. I mean, she set everything up on that team. She drove up the court. If she's double teamed, just
and South Carolina is one of the best defensive teams in the girls' game. Yeah, and she was going up against Bill, who was one of the best defenders, and she was blowing by him with the ball in her hands.
Yeah, she was.
And getting to the basket.
Yeah, it was impressive. And set up all her teammates, the pick and roll and everything. She was just dynamite. And then of course when you play off of her, she can just shoot it from 25 feet. So you can't play off of her anyway.
You can't play off of her. That's for sure.
I think the best part of the whole game was when they were like, they had that sagging defense and they were all like within like 6 or 8 feet of the basket, and the one South Carolina player got the ball around the 3-point line, and Clark just looked at her and just like waved her hand, like, "Go ahead and shoot it. You're not going to make
she
it."
like waved her off. Like,
Go ahead and shoot.
worried about you.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go out there and guard you. You go ahead and shoot it. I almost fell over laughing when I saw that. I was like, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah.
I saw her and she's like, I don't.
That was pretty funny. I have to admit, that was pretty funny.
Now, granted, they said on TV, and I didn't know that at the time. Of course, that player, she was like a 21% three-point shooter. So you figure
she hit 3 in the second half, though. It almost come back to bite them.
Yeah, but that is you are playing the odds. That is 21%. That's 1 of 5, pretty much.
They were leaving her alone, and she hit 3 in the second half, and it almost come back to bite them because towards the end, she did have to kind of come out on her a little bit. She couldn't just leave her 15 feet, alone, because she hit 3 of them.
They thought to themselves, they got to play the odds in that regard. And then they had so many good post players in there that they were just throwing the ball inside, so they had to double team as much as they could. So that was a good game plan on their part. So,
oh yeah. So let's talk about LSU for a little bit. They are ahead right now. Looks like 27-22 after the first quarter. That's what it looks like. And Kim Mulkey is there. She's the ex-Baylor coach who coached Brittany Griner at Baylor and won 3 championships at Baylor, I believe.
Yeah.
And now she's in her second season at LSU, and she already has LSU in the championship game fighting for a title. So,
yeah, really impressive what she's done and how quickly she did it. I mean, it's only been the second year, and now they're in the championship game. I mean, of course, it helps now in the modern era with the transfer portal and NIL and
yeah, I mean, Angel Reese is a transfer and Moore's a transfer. And so she built it in the transfer portal.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but still,
it's really
to do what she's done
that quickly. Yeah,
it's impressive. It's pretty impressive.
I was surprised that when she took the job. I guess she had been at Baylor for 20-some years, so it's kind of maybe time for it was maybe time for a change. But she came in there and she flipped the script real fast. I mean, they went to the tournament last year. I think this
is actually LSU's first time in the championship game in school history.
Yeah, and then last year I think they lost in the Sweet 16, but now the second year she's there and they're in the championship game. And you're going to see it though, not to kind of change over the men's game, but I think you'll see with some of the coaches like this season, like I think one of the bigger names, Patino, I think St. John's is going to be good pretty darn quickly because I think he's pretty much cleaned house and who's there, and I think he's going to bring in who he wants to be there. And I think I'm not saying they're going to be in the Final Four next year, but I wouldn't be surprised in about 3 years they're right there. So I think it's
the game's changed. Yeah. I mean, Mulkey done this with the transfer portal.
You can change the roster.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, you can change the roster real quickly now, and I think next year. Yeah. St. John's will be formidable, and I think in 2 or 3 years they could be right there. I
agree with you on that.
So
they're talking to Mulkey right now. She's a heck of a coach. So
got a heck of a wardrobe too.
yeah, she does. She does do that as well. I have to say that she does do that.
But game or a fashion show, I don't know.
Yeah, she's either one. I'm not real sure. So I bring up Mulkey and Iowa and everybody. South Carolina has been the most dominant team for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe 6. Everybody talks about Dawn Staley and the job that she's done. But there are a few other coaches in the girls' game that are getting the job done, and Mulkey's one of them. Iowa and their coach with Caitlin Clark has done a job as well. Of course, you got Gino at UConn.
People forget not to knock on Gino, but Paige Beggars got hurt last fall, so she didn't play all season. She was their best player, and they were in the championship game last year, so they'd have her. They'd be right in the thick of things this year as well. So next year, I expect them to be back right in the chain at the end of the season. So
they'll be right there in the conversation. That's for sure.
She's healthy. I mean, this was the first year. Talk about amazing statistic. This was the first year since 2000, I think it was 5, that they didn't make the Elite 8, and I was just like
14 straight years. 14 straight years, guys.
Okay.
That Gina has had UConn there. Now,
Yeah, that
you
was
don't count 2020, John, because 2020, was no tournament. But
but
outside of that, you know what I mean?
I mean, that's kind of like
Yeah.
with Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots. Like every year, they were at least in that. Almost every year, they were in that AFC Championship game, whether they made the Super Bowl or didn't. Every year for like 12 years in a row, it was insane. Every year, it was just like they were one of the 4 teams left in the NFL. That's just insane because of how much parity there is.
Most people thought it was a foregone conclusion that Staley and Boston and Bill and Cook and all of the teammates there, Cardosa and all of them, were going to be in the final game. So the job that Iowa did to get here, we were talking about it off air before. Is Iowa going to have enough gas left after beating such a dominant team like South Carolina in the semifinal game? That's
the $1 million question. So
right.
So it's a 1-point game now. That minutes left in the second quarter. So
yeah, so this is going to be an exciting game too, I believe, down the stretch as well. So it's going to be a fun game to keep up with while we're on air. So that we'll try to keep up with it while we're on air and while we're talking about other things as well. I did want to start out with the women's game because today is the women's championship game. So I kind of wanted to start out talking about that. But we're going to kind of switch and go to the men's game. And the first thing I want to talk about is the buzzer beater yesterday. I think that might be the first true buzzer beater in the semifinal game history, Final Four history.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the championship game
where it ended the game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the last second where it ended the game is what I mean.
Yeah. No. Just a couple years ago, Jalen Suggs hit the shot against UCLA, Gonzaga. Remember half court? It was 2021.
That's right. That
was the second semifinal game.
Did that? Yeah, that ended the game too, didn't it?
Yep, the tie game. I think it was a tie game with like 5 seconds left. They hit the shot from right across half court, and that ended the game.
Yeah, that was Jalen Suggs. Yeah, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when we had
championship game was
the Zagaholic on.
Was 2016. The championship game was North Carolina and Villanova, where Chris Jenkins hit the shot from the 3-pointer at the buzzer to win the championship. But the semifinal game was Gonzaga against UCLA that year, and he hit the shot.
UCLA,
at the buzzer, like half court.
Yeah, you're right. I remember it now because we were just talking about it.
Yeah, he threw it up. He threw it up across half court and hit the glass and went in, and that was the game. And and then Gonzaga lost to Baylor in the championship a couple nights later. Yeah.
So it looks like Jay's pulling for LSU and UConn.
Other than that, though, I can't remember another game in the Final Four in the semifinals that ended on a buzzer beater for us in my lifetime. I don't maybe
Lamont Butler is going to be a hero and known forever with that shot.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Honestly, I mean, it'll be played 20 years from now. You know what I mean? Like in those, promos and stuff like that. No matter what happens, you know what I mean?
Yep. Did you see on Twitter? I saw on Twitter that somebody showed the picture of when he was dribbling on the sideline, like 2 or 3 seconds before he took the shot. He almost stepped out. He was so close to stepping out. And
he almost did. Actually, like minuscule, like he almost stepped out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's crazy. He was that close, and then he just hit the shot like 2 seconds later.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, great shot. So, when I was watching it live, I'm thinking to myself, why don't they call timeout? What's he doing? And of course, like he said, the coach said afterward that he called timeout, let them set their defense. So.
They set their defense up and everything. So he come down, and I mean, what was really such an amazing about that shot was his elevation.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. I don't know if you guys paid attention to it, but I mean, as an ex-player, I mean, his elevation on that jump shot, like he was so far above the defenders, everybody else.
The guy's hand was right in his face too, and he hit the shot. So the defender's hand was right in his face. He hit the shot. So, I
mean, he had such good elevation on that shot. I mean, he was probably 3 feet off the ground. When he went up to take that shot, and was just so much above everybody else. But anyway, he's going to be known forever with that shot.
He's
Butler
here.
is.
He never has to pay for drinking in San Diego ever again, or shouldn't have to. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, no matter what happens, on Monday night, right? He's going to be known for that.
Yeah, he is.
Did y'all catch the Padres game where they were? I think it was right before the Padres
Yes,
started.
I did actually. Where when the buzzer beater happened,
And then the entire stadium just erupted.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
they were showing the game.
I think they were.
And the whole stadium like just erupted when.
Yeah, I think they were in the
when
middle
Butler
of
hit
doing
that shot.
like lineups, the starting lineups, but they had one screen that had all the starting lineups out in left field, and in right field, their scoreboard, the screen had the game.
That's cool.
And
Had the game.
Yeah, as soon as they hit the shot, they
the whole
place went nuts.
The whole place went nuts when Butler hit that shot and San Jose won
And
yesterday.
I'd say it's about
last night.
75% full at Petco
Yeah,
Park,
because I don't think the
whatever
game
that
had
is.
started yet, right?
No, it hadn't started. It was like I said, it looked like they were doing opening lineups. It looked like they were doing starting lineups. So
Yeah.
but it was about 75% full, and it just place went nuts, and you could hear the crowd just go crazy for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool to see how the game ended. Now, I will say this, FAU, I mean, what a run. You know what I mean?
Sure.
What a run for FAU to even get to the Final Four as a 9 seed.
Yeah, incredible season. They
To 35 ended up 35-4.
Yeah.
And led nearly that entire game.
Yeah, true. They played a great game, and they it's almost like both.
San Diego State kind of locked down on defense the last 10 minutes of the game, made it really hard for FAU to score.
Yeah.
They had 66 points with over 10 minutes to think in the game, or close to it, 8 or 9 minutes to go in the game. And, they wound up only scoring 71. They only scored 5 points, I think, in the last like 8, 9, 10 minutes of the game. And that's what really got them beat. You gotta, you know what I mean? Like, you can't go 10 minutes with 5 points.
No,
you know what I mean? I mean, that just,
Yeah.
and that's what happened. And, but kudos to them on the season that they had. Dusty May is probably in line for at least a big pay raise, or possibly a open job somewhere.
I'm pretty sure I saw he's staying there. So I'm pretty sure he got
Is he?
He got an extension. I'm pretty sure I saw that he got an extension.
Yeah, I'm sure he's.
Yeah, or he's getting an extension. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
he's
there. I wouldn't be surprised if if he's FAU guy and he's got a lot of ties there, he might actually wait for the Miami job to open. I figure Larinaga, how many years does he have left? He's getting older,
Right.
I can see that.
Right.
I can see maybe he waits for that job. Maybe even Florida State or Florida, one of those jobs to open in the next several years. I don't know. I mean, if he that Florida area, there'll be another job that's open.
Well, Florida State, I mean, Leonard Hamilton's been there, and he's been coaching since I was a kid. So,
he's getting up there.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
I don't know how old Leonard Hamilton is, but he was at Kentucky in the late 70s.
He's assistant.
Okay,
yeah, he's got to be pushing 70
as an assistant.
Yeah, Larinaga's probably.
I'm telling you, he was at Kentucky in the late 70s. He brought in like Kyle Macy and stuff. I know. Okay, I'm a Kentucky fan. He's been coaching for a long time.
So was Larinaga. I mean, Larinaga was an assistant for several years before he got the George Mason job, and then he was there for I think 20 years, and now he's been in Miami for at least 10 years. So he's got to be 72. So I think either job could open up in the next 5 to 10 years, and probably will.
Pretty certain. I think he's 73. I think I've heard that, but yeah, you're pretty close. Yeah,
Hamilton's got to be up there too with Florida State. I mean, he has to be. There's just no other way.
And Hamilton had so many good teams the last couple of years, but this year they were bad. And it'll be interesting to see how they rebound next year, because they definitely had a bad
The fanboys are supposed to be ACC people. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. J. Y'all are supposed to be SEC.
Hey, Miami saved the ACC this year because if Miami didn't make the Sweet
Yeah,
16,
exactly. If it wasn't for Miami, y'all wouldn't have had nothing in postseason play.
They made all the way to the Final Four, so that saved the ACC. This
Yeah.
year. It wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, because where was North Carolina, and where was
Duke lost in the round. Duke? Carolina didn't make the tournament. Virginia lost the first game.
Clemson,
didn't make the tournament. NC State lost the first game. I think they only had five teams in. So
I mean,
they only had five.
Did a great job this year.
Yeah, Syracuse had a down year as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll see what Syracuse.
You know,
I think Syracuse might return the next couple of years with a new coach. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to get to our talk of the championship game on Monday night. Tomorrow night is going to be UConn versus San Diego State. Now, I want to start with this. And Steve, you've been on with us a few times, and you've probably heard me say this. I had been pushing the Big East and the Mountain West all year long. I had been saying that I thought that they could make the Final Four, that they could make a run, that they would have a chance, that one of those teams out of one of those conferences. And here we are. I wished I would have took my own on my brackets and talked about it the entire season. And then here we are, Monday night championship game. We have the Big East versus the Mountain West for the NCAA championship.
Yep. It's all come down to this. It's funny. Connecticut finished, I think, 4th in the Big East regular season this year. And then
and that's the reason why I did have a Big East team in my bracket for the Final Four, but I'll be honest with you, I picked Marquette. I thought Marquette had proven throughout the season that they would, kind of the head of the class. And lo and behold,
I actually did have Marquette.
And lo and behold, UConn starts playing like they did in November again, and okay.
Yeah, they played really well for the last month of the season and into the tournament. They did get beat in the Big East tournament in the semifinals, but a lot of times it's better to lose in the conference tournament, not the first game, but you want to lose somewhere in the conference tournament. I think it always seems like it bodes well for teams to kind of they get a little downtime and rejuvenate before the NCAA tournament starts. And UConn just caught fire. I mean, they're beating everybody by 10 points or more in this tournament. We'll see how San Diego State. The key is going to be San Diego State defense tomorrow night. If they can play great defense and lock down, they have a chance. If they can't, I think UConn could just run away with it. So, and it'll be over with 5 to 7 minutes left. So I think that's going to be the key. So.
Oh, I fully agree with you on that. I mean, San Diego State's kind of bully ball in their defense. They play a tough brand ball. I think that's how they actually beat Alabama. Actually, John kind of called it on our show.
Yeah, when I did my bracket, I was looking at it. I'm like,
I have to give him credit on that one.
Yeah, I had Alabama in the Final Four because I thought to myself, Alabama's got a lot of athleticism. I think no matter who they play in that region, I was like, they're going to win. So I had them in the Final Four. And I did too. I had him. I thought it would be, and same with Miami beating Houston. I thought the same way. I thought that'll be a close game possibly, but Houston's just got too much athleticism, and Miami has good athletes with defense, and I think they'll just, they'll push themselves past Miami, and of course Miami beat them. Then they went on and beat Texas as well. So.
Yeah. So Bama is 1-9 after the loss in the Sweet 16. They were
in the Sweet
1-8. Prior to that loss in the Sweet 16. So I just said they're losing in the Sweet 16.
What I'm saying is you called their defense and playing bully ball as being what could possibly beat Bama is what I was talking about.
Yeah. Once that matchup was set, I said, for San Diego State, just because the length that they had and the fact that they play very physical, is that if they could limit the 3-point shots from Bama, then they could beat Bama. Yeah. And that was kind of where I was going with it, because if Bama just shoots over them and hits a bunch of threes, then it negates what San Diego State does. But if
right.
San Diego State could limit the threes from Bama, then I felt like they had a shot to win, and that's what they had to do to win that game.
True.
So
yeah, that was a great pick. I just didn't see that coming. It was a great pick.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either. Like I said, I have to give John a little credit on that one because he did talk about San Diego State's defense. Now, I fully am on board with what you said, Steve, a few minutes ago. I mean, that's going to be the key to this game is whether or not San Diego State can kind of play that bully ball and tough-nosed defense and lock them down, kind of like they did against Alabama, like they did last night against FAU towards the end of the game. They're going to have to be able to do that in big stretches tomorrow night against this UConn team.
They can't let UConn get out to a big lead. If they do, they're
I'm not saying that they have to do that the entire 40 minutes. I realize UConn's probably going to have a few spurts here and there, and they're good enough. They're too good of a team not to, more than likely. But they certainly are going to have some pretty long stretches where they, play that tough-nosed defense and keep UConn and their explosive offense from scoring so many points.
No, I agree. I think that they got to keep it close. UConn, like you said, is going to have some spurts, of course, but you got to keep yourself within distance with about 10 minutes left in the second half, and then you can hit it into what you call it hyperdrive and really knock down defensively, and hopefully UConn misses some shots and you got to make your shots on the other end. Like I said, that game last night, I mean, like you said, FAU dominated that game for pretty much the entire game, and they're probably waking up today like, man, how did we lose? We had a bad stretch there at the end, but for the most part, they had that game, the whole time. Now, one thing I didn't agree with was the shot at the end when he drove to the basket. It's almost like you drive and when he missed that shot, there was nobody under the basket for the rebound.
Nope.
FAU was terrible because once the San Diego got it, they got right out in transition. They had 7 seconds, but that's all they needed. You just kind of, I think you have a couple guys on the basket. You pull up for like a 15-foot jump shot. If you miss it, you get the rebound. They're going to have to foul you immediately. Even if you don't get the rebound, it's going to be a scramble for the rebound. And then they either have to rush up the court and try a desperation shot, or they have to call their last timeout. So I don't know that driving to the basket. I think it was partially blocked by the defender for San Diego State, but still, they had nobody on the basket for the rebound. So once he missed it, it was just, they got it and they had enough time to transition right up the court and the guy hit the shot.
Yeah, they had about 7 or 8 seconds, I think, when he got the rebound and turned.
Yeah, plenty of time. And the shot clock was, I think he still had a couple more seconds on the shot clock. It was close, but still,
Oh, yeah.
I just
so – I mean, they didn't have anybody under there to rebound.
Yeah, once he missed that
whatsoever.
shot,
when he threw it up, it didn't even hit the rim. Did it hit the backboard and come off?
It was partially blocked though by the defender. It looked like the defender got a piece of it, but it didn't hit the rim. It came off the backboard. So
right.
In that regard, the shot clock wouldn't have restarted anyway. But they had nobody under the basket. Like once he drove to the hoop, the FAU's team was probably like, okay, let's just get back on defense. If he makes it, we're up by 3. If he misses it, we're up by 1. We just got to play defense for less than.
Well, also too, even if it didn't hit the rim or anything like that, if they were able to kind of let it bounce around and not change possession right away, then as soon as the shot clock goes out, then they'd have to restart and they can reset their defense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if the ball comes off,
being a transition.
Yeah, that ball comes off and there's like a scramble for the rebound. There's only 7 seconds left. That wastes 3 or 4 seconds, and then you never know what's going to happen. So I don't know what. Obviously they drew up some type of play and figured this would be the best way to go about it and try to get a layup and then by 3, but it just didn't work out that way. So
Right.
And I was down by 12 now.
Yeah,
they are
14 now. 30 seconds.
LSU is playing really, really well. They really are. The girls are playing really well. Like they have
56 points.
Is it 56?
Yeah,
before halftime.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The one thing I worry about, like we talked about, is that how much does Iowa have left in the second half, to make a comeback now. They're down by 14 points, 5 seconds left.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, that was the one concern I had.
It's kind of reminds me of another example, like when Wisconsin, and you're a Kentucky fan, Wisconsin beat Kentucky in the 2015 Final Four.
15,
and then they got to the final game, and I thought they were.
We were the undefeated. We were the undefeated team, just like South Carolina. We had run through everybody in 15. So it is a really good comparison.
Wisconsin was just nothing but trees and slow, but they were methodical.
Yeah, but I thought they were better than Duke in that final, but they didn't have anything left because they used it all to beat Kentucky the 2 nights before.
Kentucky.
I just think it's one of those things where, unfortunately, you just get the luckier draw. Duke the night before played a bad team. I forget who they played, but they played not a bad team, but an average team, somebody that wasn't that good. I can't remember who they played, but they played a team that they pretty easily beat, and then they were rested for the final game. So sometimes it comes down to that. So, because to be honest with you, LSU. No offense to LSU, but LSU played South Carolina during the season. I don't think it was that close, was it? So,
it wasn't. It wasn't even close.
So if LSU would have got to this game,
I mean, not really. It was 20+ points. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, if LSU would have,
if I remember right,
if LSU would have got to this game to play South Carolina, LSU would have lost by 10, 15 points probably. But the fact they got to play Iowa, and now we'll see what happens in the second half. But maybe the fact that Iowa's just tired, they just beat down from that game the other night.
Hit a 3 right at the buzzer here. So
17 points now. It's a lot. That's a big deficit. So
yeah,
wow.
We'll see what happens in the second half. Yeah.
59 points in the first half.
Yep.
That's amazing. She threw it up, called glass, of course, right before halftime.
She didn't call glass, but it worked.
Oh, I thought I heard her call glass. I'm sorry.
I made games in Dallas, so I didn't.
Backboard.
Anyway, back to the men's. Yeah, so like I said, San Diego State, they just got to keep it close. They don't let UConn go on one of those crazy runs, and they got to shoot pretty well. They can't shoot terribly. Like Miami just couldn't hit a shot for a while there in that game.
So I haven't looked. What do you think the line will be for tomorrow night in the game?
If I had to look right now, I'd say 6 UConn. That's my guess. 6. I mean, I can look it up right now. I'd say 6.
Yeah. I haven't looked it up yet either, so I was just kind of wondering. John, what do you think the line will be in this game, UConn, San Diego State?
I mean, I'm not in on these lines, but I'm going to go with 6.5. Yeah. All right. So the Auburn game's officially over. So
Did they win or lose?
Oh, no. They absolutely gave up everything in their mother in the last 3 innings of the game. They just gave up a grand slam. It was 12-8 Florida. And
7.5 is the line.
Oh,
7.5?
Yep, 7.5.
That's actually a pretty large point spread, I think, for a final game.
Just because they've been beating everybody by 10 points or more. That's maybe 12 points or more in this tournament.
They've actually beat everybody plus 20 except for last night was like 13.
Oh, really? I mean, Arkansas, I was just surprised they beat Arkansas that badly. That was the one game I'm like, man, I thought that game would be really close, and they just destroyed it.
UConn has looked really, really good. Dan Hurley has done an amazing job of getting them back to where they were because they started the season as this team. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not exactly sure if they have an injury. I'm not exactly sure what happened. They started the Big 12 or the Big East. I think they were like 2-5.
Yeah, we did. They had that January lull where they were like they couldn't win a game.
I think they were either 2-4 or 2-5 starting in the Big East.
They had that lull in the middle of the season where they just hit the skids and couldn't win a game.
And they just looked terrible. Their offense disappeared. disappeared for a while, and they looked terrible for a while. And I thought, I mean, the class of the Big East, they wound up making a pretty decent run because at one time they were like 8th or 9th in the Big East. And I think they finished 4th.
I think, yeah.
4th or something in the Big East, I think.
Big East is an impressive conference. I think the most impressive thing about the Big East going forward is the fact you saw 5 teams make it this year, and the teams at the bottom are just, I mean, St. John's is going to be better now that Pitino's there. Ed Cooley switched to Georgetown. I got to imagine they're going to be better in the next coming years. Marquette's still going to be good. Connecticut, they're in the championship game. I mean, they're going to bring a good core of this group back for next year.
As long as Miller's at Xavier, they're going to be. They're going to be.
That was only his first year, so I think they're going to be better.
Right.
Who am I? Creighton was in the Final 8. I mean, they're going to bring back a lot of guys.
McDermott's always got Creighton playing good, so
you're going to have the cellar dwellers in the Big East. Like DePaul's never going to be, unfortunately, probably that competitive.
No, probably not. I mean, there'll be 2 or 3 teams.
But Butler will be better. I mean, they had a bad year, but they're usually a really solid team. So I mean, Butler I think will be better.
And then we haven't brought them up, but Villanova's in the Big East as well, and they finished playing a lot better for their first year coach.
And Justin Moore announced he was coming back. Their guard, he's coming back.
Yeah. So I expect Villanova to at least be mid-pack in the Big East next year. I don't know.
Forgetting about is Seton Hall, and then Holloway took that job last year, so it's going to take him a couple years to get in his core of recruits and transfers.
That is so true, man. You got Seton Hall in there. Yeah, that's 8 or 9 teams out of there, man.
Pretty much everybody's going to be. I mean, that's going to be like I said. Patino's at St. John's. Cooley switched to Georgetown. Hope Providence with English, I think, is going to be good. He's brought back a couple of their guys that were already there. But that conference is going to be. It's going to be brutal in the next couple of years.
I noticed that Hopkins said he was coming back.
Yeah, a couple of their guys already announced they were coming back. They're going to be good next year. I mean, that conference is going to be brutal definitely next season, but even more so in 2024, 2025 when
because you got Holloway in his second year. Yep. You're going to have English with Providence. You're going to have Cooley with Georgetown, Pitino with St. John's.
It's going to be brutal in a couple of years. You kind of feel for a team like DePaul. Yeah, you kind of feel for a team like DePaul because DePaul might be just
poor DePaul. Poor DePaul won't have a shot.
It's like Nebraska in Big Ten basketball. You kind of like, they just get massacred. Like they won like what 6 or 8 Big Ten games this year, but they just can't compete in basketball. Well, they can't really compete in football. We'll see now with Matt Rule if he turns them around. But for last.
They're gonna have to try to reincarnate Ray Myers or something at DePaul.
Yeah, DePaul's. Yeah, they were okay. They were semi-competitive this year, and they got that new arena and all. But that program hasn't been really relevant since the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, it's been over 30 years.
Yeah, late 80s probably. Really,
I'm trying to remember.
I mean.
So
Ray Myers used to have some good teams there in the 80s.
The late 80s, early 90s.
A long time ago.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime ago now. I mean, any modern day fan doesn't even know. Yeah. So.
No. Most people don't even know who Ray Myers is, probably.
Yeah. Who's Ray Myers?
Yeah. Anyway, if you're listening to this and you have no idea who Ray Myers is, I get it. I understand. It was a long time ago.
I've hit on the Big East a lot. Now to the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West is just about it's like liftoff. It's going to take off. I think would they get 4 in the dance this year? Or did they get 5? I think they got 4.
They got 4, and I really thought they were going to get 5, but New Mexico fell off at the end of the season. They lost. Yeah, they lost their last 6 games. New Mexico.
Yeah, they fell off. I think they're going to be conference going to be right back next year. San Diego State's here to stay. Now Ryan Odom did leave Utah State, so we'll see how they go for it. But Boise State, one of their good players is coming back. I saw Nevada had a couple players returning. They're both good. I think New Mexico will bounce back next year if they can remain healthy.
UNLV didn't have a bad team this year. They didn't get in, but I mean they went like 17-13. And
Tim Miles has turned around San Jose State. I mean that's a tough rebuild. He's turned them around.
You got Richard Pitino, which is Rick's son at New Mexico. Of course, like I said, the wheels kind of fell off at the end this year. But
Nevada was solid. I'm trying to think who else I'm forgetting teams out there.
I'm going to bring up BYU and Mark Pope. He always seems to have a decent team.
Well,
I don't know.
They're moving to the Big 12, though. They're moving to the Big 12.
They are, aren't they? Big 12 is moving to the Big 12. You're right.
He's moving to the Big 12. So they won't be there.
That's right.
Fresno
You're
State,
right about
Fresno State's still in and of course in the Mountain West. I'm just trying to think. There's a few other teams I'm forgetting, but I mean the conference has gotten better and better through the years. Oh, Colorado State and Wyoming. They're two teams that had down years, but
Wyoming, of course, one of their better players is transferred.
Yeah,
he's in the portal.
Yeah. And he didn't play this year. He was
Graham Ike or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he didn't play this year, and he's transferring. But Colorado State,
he was hurt.
Yeah, he was hurt this year.
Yeah.
Colorado State had a good team last year, made the tournament. So, like you said, that conference is getting. I mean, there's a Jim Phillips from the ACC, the commissioner, had mentioned. I saw it the other day that he was going to have a meeting with the ADs and stuff like that and coaches because he was how far the ACC is down. I mean, they had 5 teams in the tournament this year, but.
I'm going to tell you right now, when you look at the landscape, so I was, we're kind of doing that here. And I kind of had this up for talking about the landscape of basketball for next year, but we're kind of already doing that. You look at the Big East and we're just sitting here talking about the Mountain West. And then you're going to have, after next year, you'll have Oakland, Texas joining the SEC. And then, you're going to have Houston and Cincinnati and BYU and joining the Big 12.
I mean, look what happened this year with FAU and North Texas, and they're both going to conference. They're both going to
and UAB
and UAB.
So that's the one thing. So Conference USA. That's one thing that I was going to get to before we get off too. Is Conference USA had such a good ending to the season, but the deal is all of those teams are going to the AAC.
True.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
right.
It's like the rich get richer, but the AAC, of course, is losing Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF all to the Big 12. So it's just constant moving up and down. And I guess the most interesting story going forward is going to be the Pac-12 because you're losing UCLA and USC after this season. They still don't have a media deal. I mean, football looks pretty good, the Pac-12 this year. Like if you look at it from a perspective, they got a lot of good quarterbacks coming back.
But when you look at the landscape of college basketball, so what does that mean for the ACC and the Big Ten?
I think the Big Ten,
the Pac-12 is going to be really down too because they're losing UCLA.
I think they're going to be down, but I think the Pac-12, I think it couldn't have been more magnetized more this weekend than San Diego State. They just need to pick up the phone and call San Diego State and add them and one other team. Maybe, I don't know what other team.
Gonzaga. I don't understand why.
Because Gonzaga's only basketball.
Basketball. They would add them because it's got to be football. San Diego State's got a pretty good football team too.
San Diego State has football and they have baseball. They could up everything.
And they're right in Southern California. Yeah, that's San Diego State's a perfect fit. The second team, I don't know.
Gonzaga doesn't fit unless they add football and they start really adding other sports. I mean, maybe football's the big thing.
Maybe the second team for the Pac-12 to add would be possibly Boise State. I mean, for another football, somewhat power, they can compete in the Pac-12 when they're in the northwest area of the country. I'm trying to think of another team they could add. I mean, because the BYU already got taken.
Yeah, but they're out there and they have a great basketball program. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Pac-12 is going to need somebody to help carry them.
Oh, I agree. They're in
basketball.
Well, that's the reason.
New Mexico State. That's it. Got it.
What's that?
New Mexico State.
Yeah. They have a football team at least.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think the Pac-12 definitely does. I mean, the biggest you're hearing all the time, I don't know if you've been following it, the media deal, this still is not done. And I think their media deal runs out after next
season, I think. I think next season's it.
Yeah, when UCLA and USC leave. So they have till the summer of 2024, which is only 15, 16 months away to finalize the deal. And they're talking to like smaller. I mean, they can't really get anybody to bite because probably the hang up with probably whoever network you're talking to is probably like, well, you're losing these two schools. Are you going to add anybody else? And they're probably like, well, we're working on it. I would not be surprised if San Diego State and, like I said, Boise State, it would have to be one other one. They'd have to add 2, would be added by that
Fresno
time.
State.
Yeah, that could be possible. It's got to be somebody who has
Fresno has a chance for them to be because they have baseball and other sports.
They've won a World Series in baseball. They've won a World Series.
You know who would be perfect for the Big East though, if they ever wanted to go to 12, would be Gonzaga. They've shown as crazy it is. They've shown, even though it's called the Big East, they're all the way out to Creighton. It's not really a geographical deal, and they're great in basketball.
It used to be, but it's not much anymore.
It's not. So I think now with UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten, and it's going to be the whole country, like Maryland's going to have to play UCLA and Rutgers are going to play USC. It's crazy. I think Gonzaga, if you schedule it correctly and you have
that's just crazy though. The Big East, Gonzaga in the Big East.
That's the perfect fit for them because they don't care about football.
They don't care about football.
Especially when they want travel costs for baseball and they go all the way out to Washington, out to Spokane or wherever it is that Gonzaga's at, and you play a baseball game on such a small budget because it's a non-revenue sport. I mean, it's the same thing for what the Big Ten's about to go through with UCLA, having to go out to Rutgers or whatever to play a baseball game or to play a
or something.
whatever it is, volleyball, something like that, where it's a non-revenue sport, and you're going to go travel cross country to play.
Have
to pay all that travel cost for a non-revenue sport. I mean,
just don't forget I said this. I would not be surprised if it happened because it fits perfectly for one reason. They're a basketball-centric school, and that's the Big East. They're focused on just basketball.
Well, and that's all the Big East really is a basketball conference.
Now, would they say join the conference in just basketball, or would they say join the conference?
I think they would say everything. I think it wouldn't be like a Notre Dame. It would be like a join the conference in everything. Because I think you could. It's suffice to say, like the Big East, the name doesn't mean anything anymore because like Creighton and DePaul and all these Marquette, all these schools aren't in the East Coast. You could say if you're going on a trip to Creighton, just go a little further and go to Gonzaga, do 2 road games, and come back. Of course,
honestly,
Gonzaga.
That's what you need to do.
And Gonzaga could fly east.
Yeah.
They could play 3 or 4 road games in a row before they had to fly back. They could play like Seton Hall, Villanova, Georgetown. They could play like 2 weeks almost worth of road games and then fly back. And then have like 4 home games. Yeah.
We call this the NBA.
True. Yeah, but it's crazy. But I think that's the best fit. People said Big 12 for Gonzaga, but there's no football. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
No football.
Right.
So it's got to be like a basketball focused conference, and that's the best one. That's left. I mean, Pac-12 wouldn't fit again.
Well, unless you add them, like the Pac-12 could add them just in basketball.
I don't think
but that's going to be that's.
It wouldn't do it. It's just
it wouldn't work.
You don't think they would do that and just add their basketball program?
They wouldn't. I think they'd rather take San Diego State and Boise State or another another Mountain West school or another school on the West Coast out there because of football. It's just football's a revenue driver. In San Diego State, I mean, they got a good
just
football
get
team.
Colorado State.
That could be another one. Yeah.
I mean, there's another school.
Another school, right? Yeah, football school. Yeah, football.
Colorado State.
It's going to be 2 teams that get added most likely because they don't want to just have one. They want to have the 12, of course, Pac-12. So they want to have the 12. So they lost 2, they're going to add 2. So I think San Diego State's definitely one of them. One of those other schools out there, the other one. So we'll see in the next couple 6-12 months what happens. But
yep.
All right, so I want to hit on the transfer portal just a little bit. That's kind of in. A lot of people are hitting the transfer portal right now. So, I mean, several North Carolina players have hit the transfer portal. Caleb Love being probably the biggest name from North Carolina. But Davis, he's going to have a job to do down there because I mean, Armando's coming back, and a couple of them have said they're coming back. But they've probably got about 4 or 5 in the transfer portal right now.
He had 6 in the portal. Now, a couple of those guys last year weren't playing much anyway. One thing.
But a few of them were.
No, yeah, they were. One thing I'll point out, and somebody posted on Twitter, and I said it was a take on Twitter. I was like, the take was spot on in the fact that the modern day world of college basketball is changing in the fact that teams like North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, all those teams, they can't store these 5- and 4-star guys on the bench. If they don't play, they're gone. So it's like I just think,
Nope.
yeah, I just think this day
It's
and age,
different. It's a different time. You're right.
You're going to have
Used to they could sit for 1 or 2 seasons.
Not going to happen anymore.
And then they would come in and play, like for 2 or 3 seasons or whatever,
Not going to happen anymore.
And
these guys are just they want to play right away. And the example of Carolina would be that guy. The freshman was Tyler Nickel. He just announced he's going to Virginia Tech, and I don't agree with that. It's nothing against him. I think in the conference you shouldn't be able to transfer right away. You should have to sit. If you're going to another conference,
I don't really like that either. Transferring in conference.
I like if you're going to say you go to Kentucky and then you don't get playing time or you get Manny Calipari or whatever.
You can't just skip over to Tennessee.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's just not right.
I don't like that. I think if you transfer, if you get they're talking about a lot of different transfer rules. The one-time transfer is fine. And I think if the second transfer, you should have to sit unless there's some kind of mitigating circumstances. Like
I do too. I hate this. I hate this 3 and 4 schools and all this stuff. I mean, I don't like that either.
But the second part is if it's in the conference, I think you should not be allowed to play right away. That's just even if it's your first transfer. You should have to sit. If you're going to transfer, there's 363 Division I teams, and there's only probably 15 to 20 15 in your conference. You've got to pick somebody else.
There's a bunch of other schools. Yeah.
Yeah. The player comes back and says something like, well, that was one of my original 5 that I looked at, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand that, but that's not the point. The point is, you chose to go to a certain school. It didn't work out for whatever reason. And now you want to flip. I don't know. I just think I've heard rumors of Caleb Love going to Missouri or somewhere. So yeah, that's fine. He goes there, the Midwest or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that too.
I don't like
but like you said, so if Caleb Love goes in the transfer portal and winds up playing for Duke.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's just,
that's just kind of, and that's, I mean, I don't think many guys are going to do that, but there's always going to be a few that are going to do that. Cause like
Alabama and Auburn, just swapping players or whatever, who's
going to be could benefit from this. And I'm not trying to pick on him. It's Chris Beard just got hired at Ole Miss. Well, he's got to get players. So there's going to be a couple of SEC players that are out there that are discontented with where they are, and he pick up the phone and call them, and boom, they could be
both. Ole Miss, Auburn looks like they're about to flip their entire roster.
Yeah,
almost.
It's just almost like it's going to be.
You're gonna see a lot going there. You're gonna see a lot at Ole Miss because he's gonna. Flip
Texas Tech, where Beard was just 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
Is 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, they're going to be losing players too, probably.
I think the modern era college basketball is going to be less dependent on. You're still going to have the top recruits and all, but most of these coaches that like the FAUs, how they're going to win is they're going to hit that transfer portal hard. They're going to get guys with 2 or 3 years experience, and they're just going to try to mesh a team together. And then the next year they'll lose 3 or 4 guys, and they'll try to do the same thing over again. They might pick up 1 or 2 recruits, but I think the high-level recruits, I mean, Kentucky's got a great recruiting class next year, and so does Duke. But they also got to look at that fact because those guys, if they're really good, they're not going to stick around long, even if they are playing. They're going to be
they're going to be there.
The
1 year.
It's the old Jacksonville State model for football. I mean, they used to get all the guys that either couldn't cut it at the D1. Well, when Jacksonville State was not D. Yeah, when they weren't D1, you had Georgia players, Auburn players, Alabama players, stuff like that. Yeah. And so when they get in trouble, get kicked out of their school or whatever, and then they go to Jacksonville State, and boom, Jacksonville State's out there, contending for a national championship at the D2 or at the
Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yeah, same
Mississippi,
thing.
Mississippi Gulf Coast.
One thing I think it does. I think it will help. Like teams like FAU. I think that in the future you're going to see where like you saw this year. It was kind of you got UConn and San Diego State, FAU, and Miami in the Final Four. I think you're always in the future. It's probably going to be about 2-2, give or take. Like this year was more 3-1. UConn's a standard team that has been there 4-1. But I think the next 10 to 15 years college basketball. I don't know what's happening after that, but you're going to have 2 of like blue blood type, like a Kentucky and like a Duke or a Carolina. And then the other 2 are going to be like teams like, man, who would have thought this team got to the Final Four? Because they got
Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah. They got transferred. Yep. They got a good couple guys from transfer portal and had a good run in the tournament. Right. And that's the future of college basketball, I think. I really think. So,
and I think, it helps with, because what we are describing is parity amongst college basketball. And I think it will absolutely help with parity in college basketball, allowing teams like
agreed.
the FAUs and the Creightons and all of those teams to have a legitimate shot at the Final Four and even at a national championship.
I agree. That's how,
as opposed to, man, you see them all get into the Sweet 16, maybe the Elite Eight, but that's it.
Yeah.
You might see them now break through where they're consistently getting into the Final Four.
Look,
consistently making the championship game.
San Diego State's not an absolute monster team. They've been really good for the last 10 or 15 years. I'm not going to say that they haven't. They have, but they're not, they're not a blue blood of college basketball.
You're gonna see teams like where like in baseball where it's not uncommon to see a Cal State Fullerton, a Fresno State, a Coastal Carolina make the college baseball World Series.
You're gonna see that more in college.
You're gonna see a lot more of that, and that's the Elite Eight of baseball right there. And then it's not only is it not uncommon to see teams like that, but again, the Coastal Carolinas, the Fresno States, and the Cal State Fullertons have all won championships.
True.
So you're going to now start seeing that happen.
In college basketball, I agree.
And in basketball.
Yeah. Theoretically, Florida Atlantic could have won that game last night. They would be in the championship game tomorrow night.
That's right.
They could have won that game. They'd be in the championship
game.
Well,
we've seen that
just a couple of
the last few years. Butler done it a few times.
Yeah, Butler did a couple times. Yeah.
Now they're going back to back. Holy smokes.
One thing we haven't seen is one of those teams win the championship. So I think you'll see that.
Right. I think but Butler got the closest. They had a shot.
I think you're going to see that.
They were the closest.
I think you'll see that in the next 5 to 10 years. One of those teams will actually break through and win the championship.
And I think Butler was the only team that defied the metrics, because I think it was either you had to have a top 5, top 10 offense with a top 40 defense, or a top 5 defense with a top 40 offense. And Butler was outside the top 40 in both. And I think that was I think that's the metric that you have to look at. That's the only thing. Butler defied everything because they defied that metric. And I think every other team or every other year, just about everybody that's ever come through has been, top 5, top 10, really high on one side. And, even if they were average, the average is 40 or better on the other.
But we've seen teams, over the years now. You had George Mason a long time ago. You had Florida Gulf Coast. You had Butler. So, over the last 10, 15 years, there have been a whole lot more like mid-major teams that have made deep runs.
Right. But again,
into the NCAA
outside
tournament.
of Butler, every one of those teams had either a high-flying offense or a high defense.
True.
A high-ranked defense.
John, he's right. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah. So, even Furman had one of the best offenses.
They did.
In the country. So what we're talking about is one of them did that. Again, Butler is the one team that was outside the top 40 in both.
Right.
I was coming back 63 to 54. 6 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yep. So continue with the transfer portal. Hunter Salas from Gonzaga has entered the transfer portal. I think his name's Salas. Is it Hunter?
Salas, right.
Hunter Salas, I think, is his name, because it's Hunter Dickinson too, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised he entered the transfer
from Michigan.
Portal.
He entered the transfer portal.
I'm very surprised about that because I think with Michigan you got to be able to get NIL money like no tomorrow. Big football school, but maybe I don't know.
Think so.
Yeah, he's not going to go pro. Because I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up. He's from Northern Virginia.
7'1". He's 7'1" and can step out and shoot. He's a ball player. Hunter Dickinson
3 years
is.
of college ball. Yeah, he's from like the north. I'm from Baltimore. He's from like the Northern Virginia, DC area. So some people saying Georgetown, maybe Maryland or maybe Virginia. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I was very surprised when I saw that because, not to mention if you're Juwan Howard, they've had a couple guys already declared for the draft. You're going to be in trouble next year. So
Yeah, I think
Well,
Juwan.
they got a pickup from Bama this week.
What's that?
So they got a pickup from Bama this week.
They did.
They had one guy that transferred in from Bama.
Okay. I didn't
All
see
right.
that. Yeah, I know that. I mean, I can't even keep up with it. There's so many guys transferring here and there. It's just like you miss it, and then you're like, oh.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can't keep up. I don't know where all the guys are going. I mean, I just these are just some of the bigger names that I have.
No, I know.
You know that I've witnessed or saw. Graham Ike from Wyoming is a big name that's being out there right now. Caleb Love from North Carolina. Those are just some of the few. Clayton, he's a guard. Walter, I think it's Walter Clayton.
Oh, Jameer Nelson just announced he's Jameer Nelson.
Yeah.
His son,
Jameer Nelson Jr. is going to TCU. Yeah,
that's a good pickup
transferring
for
to TCU.
He's a solid point guard. He's played 2 or 3 years in college. That's a really good pickup for TCU. So
yeah
I saw it announced. So
yeah, I did see that one. That one might have been this morning.
Yeah, they have to
last night.
I think it was last night or the day before. They have to decide. They have to enter the portal. I think it's by May 1st. So at that point, then you're going to see you start seeing guys commit, because right now, I mean, guys are already committed because, I mean, the teams that are finished for the season, which is everybody except 2 teams, they've been picking up the phone and calling these guys left and right. And I don't like that too. I think the NCAA needs to change that, where they said the portal opened right when the tournament started. So it kind of put the teams.
It actually opened the day after Selection Sunday on Monday.
Okay, so that Monday. So the teams that are in the tournament are disadvantaged because you don't have time to. You're
I don't like it exactly. If you want to talk about that, Steve, here's what I want to talk about when it comes to that. All right. So football, okay. The portal for football actually opens around the same time that the semester ends.
Which is like the end of December.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is like the middle, the 20th or something of December, around the middle or so of December. And
it's more like right around when the
10th,
the championship games are.
Yeah, it's like maybe the 10th. It might be the 10th or something like that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But that's when the semester ends, and then they pretty much have to make a decision by like January the 15th or 18th or whatever, when the semesters go back to school. Okay. And that's how football works. I don't understand why you would open a portal in college basketball with students, okay, on March the 13th.
Because they're in the middle of the semester. Yeah, I don't
in the middle of a semester. I don't understand.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
Doesn't make any sense.
The player that I was referring to from Alabama to Michigan is
Namari Burnett. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I did see that. Yeah, I did see that. So that's a good pickup for Howard. But I mean, if he lost Dickinson and a couple other players that declared.
Right.
His son declared he was going pro. I can't remember Howard. I can't remember his first name. John. Yeah. Howard's son. But anyway, they've lost several guys to the pros. So unless he's got a really good recruiting class coming in and he picks up a lot of transfers, they might. And now losing Dickinson, they might be in trouble.
And to have Hunter Dickinson. And to not be able to win like they did this past year, I'm going to be honest with you. Howard's in trouble, Michigan, if you ask me.
To be honest with you, I'm surprised he kept the job after he threw that punch.
Yeah, correct.
Against Wisconsin.
I think Howard's in trouble up in Michigan. That's just my opinion, but I think so.
I think you'd be right.
The portal thing here I don't understand why the window opened. So why doesn't the window open closer to the end of the semester?
It should honestly open like tomorrow, because there's only 2 teams left playing tomorrow. So tomorrow. Then everybody in school can pick up the phone and call these guys. And then tomorrow night's the championship game. So if UConn, San Diego State, they're in the championship game, they can start. They can start Tuesday. The game's tomorrow night.
Right.
Or as soon as the game is over.
Yeah,
I mean,
midnight Tuesday. Yeah, the game's over at midnight.
Well,
Tuesday.
and then it could be it could close by the time the semester is over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where at least it would make sense and tie it to classwork and classes. We're talking about kids that are in class here.
I agree.
I don't understand why in the world the NCAA would have a portal open on March the 13th or 12th or whatever it was,
they were
in the
coinciding
middle
with,
of a semester.
They were just coinciding with the day the world shut down in 2020. They just wanted to go ahead and say this is our day.
Well, it's funny. One guy I read a story about him. He did say, and this made some sense, not total sense. He said he put his name in the portal, and then the week he was like that next week, coaches were contacting him. He was scheduling all his visits while he was on spring break. So then he was going to go see 5 or 7 schools and then make a decision where he was going to go. So that does make somewhat sense. He's not skipping class. He's going all his visits the week of spring break, just go around the country and see 6 or 8 schools and talk to coaches, and then sit down with his parents and make a decision where he wants to go. So I can see that. But again, spring break doesn't always coincide with that too. So
Right.
Well, I mean, everybody's spring break is different. I mean, there's some of
them
them
it's different. Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But
Right.
that's the NCAA for you. So.
That is true.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to that, so since we're talking about it, I wanted to, because I don't really understand that. I agree with you. It actually should open up after tomorrow, or tomorrow sometime, or after the game tomorrow night, or whatever, and run through about mid-May.
I agree.
Or something, towards the end of this. That way, kids could go ahead and sign up for summer classes at their new school.
Even Memorial Day would be a perfect ending to it. Yeah.
Yeah, Memorial Day. Yeah, at the end of May, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. That way, kids can go ahead and sign up for summer classes at their new school.
True.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why you have kids transferring in March when they don't even, even summer school classes for next year wouldn't start till June.
June, yeah.
Right.
They
start, it's the very beginning of June.
Right.
So
summer school classes. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So I do want to get to the NIT, John. UAB and North Texas were there, and, Conference USA made a heck of a run in this postseason college basketball. They do deserve to be talked about. Prior to the North Texas UAB game, where you had 2 Conference USA teams playing each other, and one was going to win and one was going to lose, Conference USA was 17-1 in postseason play.
Yeah.
Prior to that game.
Yeah.
They had won the CBI with Charlotte, and North Texas and UAB were in the final game of the NIT, and Florida Atlantic was in the Final Four of the NCAA tournament, and they were 17-1. Now, of course, North Texas beat UAB, made them 18-2, and then last night, San Diego State hit a last-second shot and beat Florida Atlantic. So they wound up being.
Count them as 18-2 when they beat themselves. I mean, that's like saying the SEC is whatever in national championship games, but we have to remember that Alabama did beat LSU.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they wound up being 18-3, but one of those losses they had to beat themselves to do that. Right. So, but I just want to give them credit. Now, I will say North Texas and UAB are leaving Conference USA.
Correct.
Along with Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, and Florida Atlantic, right,
yep.
is leaving Conference USA.
The top 3 in that conference, 1, 2, and 3 of those 3 right there.
Looks great. Yeah, looks great for the AAC, because now you're losing Houston and UCF and Cincinnati.
Yeah,
and now you're getting 3.
And then
which
you're
one
adding
of them was
Florida
your top
Atlantic.
team of your conference is going away, but you're adding the top 3 teams of a conference that you're pulling from.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they're also losing Cincinnati, which is usually one of the top teams in the East.
Yes.
Usually. They wasn't, but they usually are. I
And
mean,
in football,
even their down year, they were still like top 3 or 4 in the AAC.
Yeah, the AAC. Yeah, they were. Yeah.
They were still like 3 or 4 in the Memphis was 2, but they were still maybe finished 4th or something in the AAC, something like that this year. But so I just want to point out the Conference USA had a great postseason, but with that said, next season, when you're looking ahead, those teams or most of them is going to be in the AAC. So, does that, with the AAC, with what they are losing, do you think they're getting enough in return to keep them as a power, as a pretty good mid-major, high mid-major?
No, I mean, that's not the same. I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I mean, not those schools that are coming in have to build up to get anywhere close to what Houston and Cincinnati were, and UCF, even UCF, because I mean, even UCF in football, basketball, and baseball was decent, pretty decent. So they weren't awesome, but they weren't terrible either. They weren't the bottom of the barrel. So I think that they would definitely. You're dropping off in your talent level, but you have to allow the North Texas and see that one's going to be kind of a weird one to think about because I think Florida Atlantic you can probably get away with it. UAB you can if the football side jumps up because basketball they've got the coach, baseball they have the coach. Football, you don't know, even though he's a name brand.
Yeah, you just don't know how
he is never
Guilford's going to work out as a
college
coach.
level. He has never coached at college level, but he is a name brand. So that's the thing that you kind of have to keep an eye on. So maybe, but I mean, you're losing. It's a drop off. Yeah. It definitely is. So.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But right now, when you look at what they've just done in basketball, it looks like, wow, they're getting. I mean,
it looks good, but it's
is that going to carry over to next season too? That's also so.
Right.
Yeah.
FAU is supposed to bring a lot of their players back. They said I saw something last night that said that. So they bring a lot of those players back. They'll have a really good team next year. But again, UAB. Had a really, North Texas. They've had solid years, and of course, you got to also think about the football aspect of it. Johnson, baseball and other sports, like Houston was good in football.
Right, years. That's what I'm saying.
Jeff was good in football.
Cincinnati made the college football playoff
years ago. Yeah, so that's just football is a big thing too, and that's
and you'd have to really look at the football side of it. Where I mean, UCF is, I mean, they're all right. They're not great.
Yeah.
B has been good, but they've been finishing over the last couple of years. Again, they've got a coach with a name brand, but has zero history, zero anything in college football.
Right.
So, and then you're bringing in, I mean, North Texas. I don't think that they're anywhere comparable.
I mean, Florida Atlantic, maybe baseball, but I mean, football,
I mean, look, they're like UAB. They're one of those teams that could compete, but they're not going to compete against Georgia. UAB got blown off the field against Georgia.
Right.
Florida Atlantic is probably going to be the same way. If they play Florida, they play, Florida State or Miami, they're going to get beat. Well, actually, no, wait, hold on. No, that was Memphis that beat Miami, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean,
all right. Well, I just kind of wanted to bring it up because we were talking about all the runs in college basketball, and Conference USA did have a great run. But with that said, I mean, they're losing their top 3 teams this year on the basketball side and going to the AAC, and AC is losing. Some as well, and they're going to the Big 12. And we did bring up the BYU's, the other team that's going from the Mountain West in basketball. Now, BYU's been independent in football the last few years.
Yep.
True.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how they do it. It'd be interesting to see how they do against Big 12 competition in football. We're going to find out in 6 months. Less than that.
Right. So LSU girls is hanging on, to a 10, 12-point lead here, it looks like. And the Iowa's trying to make a comeback, but I don't know. Is the third quarter over with yet?
37 seconds it's counting, and if I just saw correctly, Caitlin Clark has 4 fouls, so that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean she had 2 early,
that's going to be
and so that was kind of.
That's going to be tough. The 11-point deficit and her 4 fouls. I mean, she almost can't play much defense. I mean, you're just kind of standing out there shooting, which she does great. But I
don't understand some of these calls in the women's game.
Yeah,
they made a call. They made a call a few minutes ago. This girl clearly jumped completely over one of Iowa's players' backs, and they called it on Iowa.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And how in the world was that a call on Iowa on the rebound?
Yeah.
That don't make any sense, but okay.
It's people always say I love when I see those tweets on Twitter that somebody says, "Good morning to everybody except the refs who worked the Kentucky-Mississippi game yesterday."
Yeah, man, I don't understand some of these calls. I'm like, what in the world? That don't even make sense.
Sometimes you wonder, you see it, you're like, what were you looking at? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, how in the world? So there's a quarter left. We are going to be closing up before too long, but before Steve gets off, I did kind of want to update. It looks like maybe LSU is going to win their first national championship.
75-64 at the end of the third quarter. So.
Yep.
And by the way, in basketball, this would be their first ever national championship, and I'm talking men's or women's, by the way. And LSU basketball had some really good players over the years. Pete Maravich. Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean,
they had the number 1 pick in the draft not too long ago. Ben
Simmons. Yeah.
Yep, Ben Simmons.
Big Baby Davis.
Ben Simmons.
He took him. He took him to the Final Four that year. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Good teams. Yeah.
Mitchell and a few others.
I'm just saying, the LSU has had some really, really good players over the years, and I'm talking all the way back to the '60s. With Pete Maravich. So,
right.
It's I'm talking 60 years or 55, 60 years. They've had a pretty good tradition, and they've never won a national title. So Kim Mulkey might do this in her second year and come into LSU and win a title for them.
Yeah, be impressive.
That's pretty impressive, I have to say. Well, Steve, we have had a blast with you this year coming on our show and talking basketball, especially we done it in mid-January, kind of finishing up the season, what the finish of the season was going to look like. We done one in February, kind of right before March. We done one on Selection Sunday, and now we're doing one on the Sunday before the championship game.
Thanks,
we appreciate you being.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime. Enjoy the game.
We appreciate you being with us this year. Maybe we'll have you on next year as we do all this, and hopefully
get them
next year with the class that we got. Kentucky will be in there, and we can talk.
Yeah. Oh, those guys, if they're all as advertised. And Calipari can get.
I know. I said hopefully. Listen, I am not on board yet. I can promise you, I'm not.
One question is Tshiebwe coming back? Is he?
I don't know.
Okay, that's the key. If you can get him inside, with those other guys, they should be in the Final Four next year. If those other guys are advertised, and if he can rebound, and you could probably tell him when to come back, all you got to do is rebound. We got enough.
Exactly. If he would come back and you put him with Bradshaw, the 7-foot guy that can shoot threes, and Wagner and Dillingham and Edwards, and
maybe need to pick up one transfer portal guy, maybe one guy.
And I have heard that Reeves wants to come back and use his COVID
There you
year.
go. That would be
a pretty good one too.
That's probably enough. One thing I've noticed this year in college basketball, I'll leave it at this, is these teams that are winning, and I don't understand, some teams that don't. You got to have a couple guys coming off the bench that can score. Like some of these teams don't have any bench. And it's just like you got to have these teams that are,
that's
are getting
Kentucky
deep.
didn't have any.
You got to have a bench. You got to have a bench. If you don't have a bench, you're in trouble. You got to have a couple guys that can come off the bench and score and rebound. Do something. They got to have a role.
This is why San Diego State is even in the talks, because they have a complete.
That's why UConn's there. They go 10, 11 deep.
You got to have a bench.
UConn goes 10, 11 deep.
And this day in college basketball, you got like all these bigger schools, like these guys on the bench, like half these bigger schools, like who was that an example of? I'm talking to a buddy of mine, just brings up real fast, Villanova, and he said to me, like, this is last year, not this year with the new coach, but last year with Jay Wright. He's like, I don't know. He's like, they're only playing like maybe one guy off the bench. All these guys are all like All Americans. Why doesn't he play them? I guess they don't think they're ready, but it's like they don't have any bench. And they, of course, last year they got to the Final Four. They had a couple guys hurt and they lost. They had no bench though.
Yeah.
They have players on the bench that are capable of playing. I guess the coach doesn't, number one, trust them, or number two, they just doesn't think they're good enough. I don't know.
I mean, it's like, again, there's other schools in which you've got high touted guys sitting on the bench as well, and you also can look through the transfer.
Well, in this day and age with the transfer portal. You can't leave guys sitting on the bench. If you do, they're going to be gone.
I talked about that earlier.
That's what we just said.
We basically, what we said earlier. I know these guys are going to sit on the bench. You saw Carolina has 6 guys transferring. Kansas has 3 or 4 guys transferring. I don't know how many Kentucky has. All the big schools are having guys transfer. It's not going to happen like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's not. Even 5 years ago.
Right.
It's different now.
Kentucky's going to have a bunch transfer too.
If you're not, it's the guys thinking, if you're not going to play me, somebody's going to play me. So it's just like I'm going to go somewhere, even if I got to go to a mid-major and start and be a star, And that's how teams like San Diego State and FAU will benefit, So
I agree with you.
Anyway.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for being on with us, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the weekend, and enjoy the game tomorrow night.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
See you guys.
All right, guys. We are about to wrap up our show for today. I do want to get to a couple of things before we do. Our prize picks. You can go to prizepicks.com and put in our code CSCast to double your money. Daily fantasy sports. And up to $100, you can double your money and your initial deposit. So you put down $50, you can get $100 to play with. Put down $100, you get $200 to play with. Again, use our code CSCast. And as we wrap up the show here, our nonprofit organization that we ask that you give to is Home for Our Troops. They are building homes for injured and wounded vets. So we ask that you go to www.hfotusa.org to give, and they will build homes and rebuild these lives for the injured vets.
Yep.
So they're still down about 11. Iowa is, it looks like. So it looks like LSU is probably going. There's still 9 minutes to go in the game. So
hey, let's go real quick. Let's go real quick on baseball. Just going to run through a few scores here. Top of the 8th inning, Arkansas leads Alabama 5-4. Winner takes the series. I believe Notre Dame is beating North Carolina right now, 9-0, bottom 7th. I think winner takes the series on that one as well. Auburn lost to Florida 17-8. Florida took the series in that one. Kentucky beats Missouri 3-1 and sweeps Missouri in that series. And I'm kind of going through to see if I can't find anything. I think Miami swept Florida State by winning today 13-4. Yep, there we go. So some of the big schools.
Something to look forward to this week on Thursday, guys. We're going to have an NFL draft show and a draft specialist on here on Thursday this week. And then on Tuesday, we'll kind of wrap up the college basketball and do some hot topics and news on Tuesday night. That's our plan as of now. But look forward to Thursday night with us. We're going to have NFL mock guy with us, and we will be doing the NFL draft. And we'll be doing 2 rounds, I think, with trades and everything. So it should be a fun show. And we are now on WSBN TV channel 30. Check us out. And we are presented by the Fanboys. Catch College SportsCast on Tuesday.